Music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly get caught in the fake. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Steampunk Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Hello and welcome to the Pun Show. Thanks again for joining me. I'd like to thank you guys. Yesterday I hit an all-time high for total live listeners, which was like 1,700. So that felt good. Thanks for watching. Thanks for making me feel literally seen. But hopefully the channel can keep growing and I can keep putting out the truth and keep agitating MAGA trolls who, by the way, thank you. You guys are part of the reason. Your little troll comments are doing good in the universe. All right, so today I'm going to focus mainly on ICE's racist enforcement tactics. Yesterday I was going to get into that, but it just with all the other stuff I went over. So just decided to spill into another day of talking about this. It's an extension of the whole replacement theory thing, which is being pushed by Demon Spine and Trump advisor Stephen Miller. So he's actually going to be on the show today via clip for just a minute, but on something unrelated. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is hang on, I just realized I did not I gotta upload this video file real quick.
Here's the other thing, Pamela, I think is really important. I've talked quite a bit about this. SNAP is a broken program. SNAP is full of corruption. We found 186,000 dead people. We asked for the SNAP data earlier this year. It has never been turned over to the federal government before. We had 29 states turn it over, mostly red states. 21 states said, no, thank you, we're in litigation. From just those 29 states, we have found, again, almost 200,000 dead people. It's remarkable.
And I understand.
So here's the problem with her whole argument, her framing, her logic. First of all, it's not 186,000 dead people on SNAP. There are 186,000 people they found who are on SNAP who are dead. Now, that correlation does not mean that dead people are getting SNAP benefits. What it means is that people on SNAP benefits die, just like people not on SNAP benefits die. For some weird reason, being on SNAP does not make you immortal. So, like, sometimes people on SNAP benefits die. And when you're talking about 42 million people that are on SNAP, and you're talking about a death rate, I think it's like 9.1 per 100,000 or something like that, you're going to have people die. And some of those people are going to be on SNAP when they die. And there's a window between when they die and when the administration, the administrative aspect of things catches up to it. And that's not going to be any more than 6 months, because you have to renew your SNAP benefits every 6 months. So basically, you're going to expect to see a certain number of people who are dead who are technically on SNAP because the system hasn't caught up to it yet. And the number 186,000 is right within that parameter. It is, you would expect to see 186,000 dead people on SNAP. In fact, if you didn't see any dead people on SNAP, then that would raise red flags, because then you would be wondering what's happening to that money of the people that die while they're on SNAP before the administrative aspect of things catches up. That's number one. 186,000 people that are dead who are on SNAP is actually not bad. It's normal. Number two, you say, okay, well, they should catch it sooner. Why are they catching? Why is it taking them so long? And if you feel like that's a justified thing, the federal government does not determine eligibility. This is why there is no, what she's talking about, like no database or anything like that, because every state runs its SNAP benefits differently. And if Clinton or Obama or Biden had asked for this information from the red states would have been appalled and been screaming about states' rights. The state runs the administrative part. And those 29 states, as she said, are red states. So if you have an issue with how the SNAP benefits are being run and how they're not getting these SNAP beneficiaries that died soon enough, then your problem is with the Republicans, not the Democrats. Your problem is with the state, not the federal government. The responsibility is for the state. So if red states are having too many dead people on SNAP, that's the problem with the red states. That's not the problem with the Democrats. Number three, you are required to renew your SNAP benefits every 10 months or every 6 months. So it's impossible for these dead people to have renewed within 6 months unless they kind of like zombied and went to the, appropriate building and managed to convince people they were still alive. So that means even if you're going to talk about it being the responsibility of the federal government, Donald Trump was elected, was inaugurated in January, 10 months ago, which is last I checked, 10 months ago is more than 6 months ago. So every single dead person that's on SNAP got benefits while Trump was president and renewed at least one time. So give me, I'm not going to like act like SNAP benefits should be denied because it doesn't make people immortal. But this is one of their fallacies. They like to point out statistical anomalies and things like this. These people died that were on, or these people, dead people voted or were registered to vote. Well, people die. That doesn't mean dead people registered. That means registered people died. People on SNAP benefits, dead people on SNAP benefits did not get SNAP benefits. People on SNAP benefits died, and everything about that is normal. And if it's not normal, it's the Republicans' fault, because it's all in Republican states. There's a Republican administration. There's a Republican Senate. There's a Republican House, and there's a Republican Supreme Court. But somehow, dead people getting SNAP benefits is all the Democrats' fault. So it's not an attack on Democrats. It's not an attack on anything. It's just a justification to cut SNAP. Don't buy it. All right. So then the next thing I want to talk about is clown number one.
To stopping deadly poison from coming into our country. Secretary Rubio said that all of these strikes are supported by multiple sources of intelligence. That's correct. You can also use your common sense. If any of these have been boats full of fishermen or refugees, CNN International would have already been on the ground and interviewed all their families and told their stories. So I think we can be confident that all of these strikes have been against cartel-based drug traffickers who are destined for the United States.
No, we can't be confident of that, Tom Cotton. And I'll tell you why. First of all, by your own logic, you said that there was, you know, like the media would be talking to these families, right? Where are the families? If it's so bad, where are the families? Why aren't the families saying anything? So, what are the families saying? Let's talk about these boat strikes for a minute. There's been 83 people killed, 21 strike incidents, 14 are publicly identified, 2 known survivors, and 50 of the people remain unidentified. So first of all, when 50 of the victims aren't even identified, who are you going to talk to? Then, of the ones that have been identified, Chad Joseph, he was killed. He was just a fisherman. I don't want to believe. I hope and praying that he will come someday. She doesn't want to believe that he's dead, not that he's a drug dealer. His grandmother. Literally, the media getting quotes from his grandmother. Family says he left for Venezuela and was supposed to return the same day on a fishing boat. Friends recognize the boat from the U.S. strike video. No body has been recovered, and neither the Trinidadian nor U.S. governments have offered answers. The family has been left in a kind of purgatory, according to his aunt and family members. In Colombia, Alejandro Carranza, he was a fisherman. Alexander Carranza had no ties to the drug trade, and his daily activity was fishing. That's the Colombian president. The United States has invaded our national territory, fired a missile to kill a humble fisherman, and destroyed his family and his children. And this is the official family statement. Family said the boat set off to La Guaraja Peninsula and claimed it would not have been out of Colombian waters at the time of the attack. The family stated Carranza was a fisherman. Ecuador. Andres Fernando Tanifa Chila. I'm sorry, I need to learn Spanish, but I don't speak Spanish. I know I'm butchering these names, and it's with full apologies. No, he's not a criminal. His sister claims to know nothing of her brother's alleged involvement with drug trafficking, and instead portrayed him as a desperate father trying to provide for his 6 kids. She keeps him in his Ecuador like a shrine with a lit candle to honor him, and his clothes folded neatly on his bed. This is a CNN interview with his family. Tom Cotton sitting there going, well, if this were true, then CNN would be talking to his family. Well, Tom, CNN is talking to his family. By your logic, this means they were innocent. You said if they're innocent, CNN would be talking to his family. CNN is talking to his family. Ergo, your logic insists he is innocent. Then in Venezuela, there's some chance that this one was a drug boat. And there were a group of people that were mostly fishermen that went out with them. There were some known traffickers with them, but we're going to get into that in a second here. First, I just want to talk about the evidence that they were drug boats. Okay, 75% of the time, the Coast Guard is sure that they have a narcotics smuggling boat, and they board it in person. Only 75% of the time do they actually find drugs. So 25% of the time, when they have better intel, when they have eyesight and not just satellite videos, like they'd still have the satellite images. So they have all of that plus whatever other intel they can get by being up closer. Even then, the highest end scenario, the most optimistic scenario, is that 75% of the time they're right. That means 25% of their time they're wrong. So if you were to just do the math on it, and you were to like look at 21 strikes at 75% chance that they're right each time, then that means there is a 99.57% chance that they have killed at least one innocent person. Or at least one of the boat strikes was wrong. And so you see all these memes where you have like different kinds of boats, like you got the big wooden, kind of Jaws type fishing boat. And then you got the speedboat, and they're like, oh, see, liberals can't even tell the difference. Well, those speedboats they're showing are called go boats, and they are often used for like the fishing. They're often used for fishing, and it's like called artisan fishing or something like that. I can't remember the exact term for it, but there's a certain type of fishing that you go like way out, like it can be up to like 300 miles out, and you're fishing for like tuna and stuff. And you need the boat with the extra engines for a couple of reasons. One reason you need that kind of boat as a fishing boat is because you're going way out there. You're going like 300 miles out there. And so you need to get back before the fish spoils. So if you just got like a little 1 or 2 engine boat and it's puttering along, all your fish is going to go bad before you get back to shore. That's one reason. Number 2, when you're way out at sea, you don't want to just rely on one engine to get back to shore, because what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if one of those engines goes out? Then you're stuck out in the middle of the ocean and no way to get home. So those types of boats are not only often used for actual fishing, the majority of the time, those boats are used for fishing, which is why 25% of the time, the Coast Guard gets it wrong. Because a lot of the times, those boats are just fishing boats. Number 3, the reason the drug smugglers use those kinds of boats is because they are often used as fishing boats. They are trying to just blend in. It's like saying somebody that is trying to hide themselves wears a baseball cap. Therefore, everybody that wears a baseball cap is trying to hide themselves or hide their face from security cameras or whatever. Like, yes, it is consistent behavior. If you're trying to hide yourself from a security camera, you might wear a baseball cap. But that doesn't mean that the reverse is true. Because you're wearing a baseball cap does not mean that you're trying to hide yourself from cameras. You might just be a Yankees fan. I would say the majority of people that wears Yankees hats are just Yankees fans and not trying to hide themselves from security cameras. You follow me? Most fishing boats, most of those go boats are fishing boats. Most of the drug boats are go boats. That does not mean that most go boats are drug boats. It's logic. Try it. Okay, so now let's go on to one of my least favorite people in the world.
One that you see as insurrection?
It is insurrection, plainly, directly, without question. And when you have one of the lawmakers on that video being unable to state in, as you say, lengthy cross-examination, a single so-called illegal order, it just proves the point. It's a general call for rebellion from the CIA and the armed services of the United States by Democrat lawmakers, saying that you have not only the right but the duty and the obligation to defy orders of the commander-in-chief, that those who carry weapons in America's name should defy their chain of command and engage in open acts of insurrection, that the CIA, the clandestine service, which isn't even legally authorized to operate in the United States, should engage in, again, acts of rebellion and insurrection. These lawmakers should honestly resign in disgrace and never return to public office again for even daring to think, let alone to say these words and to say them proudly. But
All right. I want to speak to you as a veteran here. All right. Stephen Miller has never served a day in his life in the military, so he has no freaking idea what he is talking about. And this is offensive to me. And I'm going to give you a balanced interpretation of all of this, because I think that people have overswung on the left on this a bit too. But let me tell you my experience. When I was in the military, when I was in basic training, we had several days where we went over not only this very argument that it is unlawful to obey a lawful order, an unlawful order, and we were taught by the military in basic training. Every single person that has ever been through basic training or boot camp or whatever has been taught this by the military. It is unlawful to obey an unlawful order. And one of the big cases they presented to us was My Lai in Vietnam. So what happened in My Lai in Vietnam? U.S. Charlie Company, the 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry Regiment, 11th Infantry Brigade entered the village of My Lai. They didn't detect any significant enemy forces, but over several hours, soldiers raped, mutilated, and massacred 347 to 504 unarmed Vietnamese civilians, mostly women, children, and elderly men. So 347 to 504 innocent people raped and murdered. They were rounded up and shot in groups, thrown into ditches, and killed at point blank range. Then they claimed they were following orders. The following orders defense, Lieutenant William Kelly, the platoon leader, admitted he personally shot many civilians, including ordering his own men to fire into groups and into a ditch containing dozens of people. His defense was he was just following direct orders from his company commander, Captain Ernest Medina, to kill everyone in the village. That defense was rejected. He was convicted. He was sentenced to prison. Richard Nixon says, I don't think he pardoned him, but he commuted his sentence to like 3.5 years of house arrest, and then the guy was just allowed to walk free and walk around for the rest of his life after like just murdering innocent children. But we were taught this case history, this specific case history in basic training. No, you don't get to just say, I'm following orders and have that be the case. All right. So Stephen Miller calling this insurrection to remind active duty military people and National Guard military people that it is unlawful to obey an unlawful order is insidious. And not only that, I would like to just point out, what is he so concerned about? What unlawful orders does he think are being given, or is he planning on being given? Why is he so concerned that people are telling people in the military that you can't obey an unlawful order? Because to this point, I don't think that so now let me balance this out a little bit. When they say not to obey an unlawful order, we have to be careful about what that means. When you're talking about an unlawful order, it has to be blatantly unlawful, and it has to be like telling somebody to shoot civilians is an unlawful order. Reporting for duty when the president might be unconstitutionally nationalizing the National Guard and sending them somewhere, that's not following an unlawful order. That the president may be behaving unconstitutional, but your reporting for duty is not unlawful. You're not depriving a citizen of rights. You're not doing anything like that. If they were commanded to carry out police actions, that could be considered an unlawful order. But to date, they haven't been. It's been mostly show and theatrics. And I think that's the concern of the people in the show, and what they're reminding people of. If you get to this point, then you can refuse that order. And not only should you refuse that order, you legally are required to refuse that order. And that's right. That's absolutely right. That is not insurrection. That is absolutely not insurrection. For somebody that literally backed January 6th, to call this insurrection is just vile. No, insurrection is actually violently trying to overthrow the government, which is exactly what happened on January 6th. So, yeah, Stephen, you can sit this one out since you've never even been in the military, because you're a little skinny, locker-stuffed coward. All right, so now I want to go into the main thing. So I got a couple of comments here. I don't know if these people are still here. Can you explain the Chinese fishing boats in South American waters? How do they get their fish back before spoiling? I cannot explain that. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how it's relevant, because we're not talking about Chinese fishing boats. Maybe they have like some kind of ISO. I don't know. I am not a deep sea fisherman. So then 2020 mess, yes. And 2022 mess. Big no. I don't even know what that's talking. I think he might be a typo. And they were trying to say in 2020 masks were okay, but now in 2025 they're not. As though like the reasons that people were being asked to wear masks in 2020 and the reason that ICE is wearing masks in 2025 are the same thing. This is typical Republican MAGA bad faith talking points. After 5 miles, you can gamble. Oh, okay. Like after 5 miles going out in the boat, you can gamble. And which is what's happening. Actually, now people aren't gambling. You've got legitimate fishermen that they're being deprived of their livelihood. And by the way, I wanted to point something out about this that I forgot to mention there. This is why we have due process. Is because, you should be convicted of a crime before you're punished for it. And even in this case, drug smuggling is not a capital offense. And they've got this dressed up idea of narco-terrorism. So the other day I said that Trump invented narco-terrorism as a term and I was wrong about that. There was a term, narco-terrorism. I should have said Trump changed the definition of the word. So narco-terrorism originally was a term invented by Ronald Reagan in the 80s, and it referred to people using narcotics to fund terrorist activities. I'm not going to get into the irony of all that with, Iran Contra and everything to do with that, but they think that they found other ways to fund their terrorism. But that's what narco-terrorism originally meant, and still mostly that's what it means. It's when you're using narcotics trafficking to fund terrorist operations. The other thing it can mean is sometimes cartels will use terrorism to make political changes that benefit them. Like they'll bomb a governor's house or whatever to change the governor so that they can install somebody more friendly to them and that sort of thing. It has nothing to do with what Trump is saying, to where the narcotics themselves are some kind of weapon. This has actually already been used or tried in court, and the court defined, has said, no, there has to be kinetic damage. Like there has to be an actual direct threat that they pose. It can't just be, well, the narcotics could cause somebody to have an overdose. Like there has to be an intent to kill. The second thing is, most of these boats weren't even going to the United States. They were in international waters. They weren't subject to U.S. law. There's a whole lot of things, and equating this to actual terrorism is just a bad faith argument. Which I don't know. Maybe I'll get into the difference between this and other drone strikes. People are like, "Oh, you were okay when Obama had drone strikes." Which, by the way, Trump had more drone strikes than Obama did, but nobody talks about that. Trump had so many drone strikes in his first term that they stopped reporting them. Like when in his first couple of years, he had more drone strikes than Obama did in 8 years, they just stopped reporting them altogether. And aside from all of that, I will also say that drones as a weapon of war, there's arguments to be made for it. Because if you're using drones, you're not using people, which means there is actually fewer fatalities with drone strikes, and it can be more targeted, and they're not perfect, and sometimes there is collateral damage. And I'm generally against war anyway, but as a weapon of war, I'm not as opposed to drones as some people would be. Like I'd rather take out a terrorist by a drone strike than invade them with an entire army. Okay, so now I want to talk about ICE and the idea that ICE is racist. I think I will start with this one. Now, the main thing I want to talk about is there is this, like ICE, there are people that are unapologetically defensive on ICE. And they act like you can't be an American and love America unless you are pro-ICE. ICE didn't even exist until 25 years ago, even less than 25 years ago. It's a fairly new agency. And we got by a bunch of time, like most of our history without it. It was created out of the overreaction to 9/11 and the Patriot Act, which was an overreaction. Don't get all mad at me. Everybody knows that there was things in the Patriot Act that were more an overreaction. And there's nothing, like inherently hateful about saying ICE is one of that. It's part of that. And there are a number of things that are significant in terms of how ICE has behaved. Whether you can say, I don't want to get into an argument about theoretical concepts. What I want to talk about is actual objective data. Okay. First of all, we've had 170 U.S. citizens detained by ICE. Don't tell me they're only going after immigrants when they're detaining 170 U.S. citizens. And this is hardly an exhaustive list. It's actually probably a lot more. These are just 170 people that ProPublica could find. I doubt they found everybody. I doubt they even found 10% of them. There are probably lots of other people that were detained by ICE who are citizens that they did not talk to. There are 23 people who have died in ICE custody so far this year. That's the highest number since 2004, which again was part of the whole Patriot Act overreaction to 9/11 thing. And I think we're probably going to break that record, but that was because like that first year was really bad because it was just like all new. And so we didn't have proper detention facilities. We didn't have proper procedures. And so it was an anomaly. This is deliberate. .5% of the people who have been detained had no criminal record other than crossing over the border illegally. So you can say, oh, well, that's a crime. But Donald Trump himself, when he campaigned, differentiated when he said he's only going to go after the violent ones. But he's clearly not going after the violent ones. He's going after the easiest ones, just so he can drum up the numbers. 76% of ICE raids target Latino people. And you're like, oh, well, most immigrants are Latino people, except 90 to 95% of the people that are apprehended are Latino, and only about 65 to 75% of undocumented people in the United States are Latino. So there is a disproportionate number of brown people that are being targeted. There have actually been more Hispanic citizens detained by ICE than white people who are unauthorized, who are here illegally. Even though there are like 500,000 people here illegally who are from Europe. None of them are getting detained by ICE. But you have Hispanic people who are Americans that are being detained for being here illegally when they're citizens. Okay, somebody said, yes, it is. I don't know what you're referring to. What is? I don't know. I don't know if this is like agreeing with me or disagreeing with me or sorry, okay. So key findings summary: wrongful citizen detentions. There have been 1,480 U.S. citizens released from ICE custody after proving citizenship. So this 170, that's people that showed IDs and stuff. They showed their passports, they showed their IDs, and they were still detained. There's been about 1,500 who were detained, showed their IDs, and then, oh, I'm sorry. Forget what I just said. I had a brain fart. It's 1,480 from 2012 to 2018. 170 detained just in 2025, including 20 children. And 70 potential citizens deported. And that was before, like, this is one of the things I'd like to point out. Things have gotten worse under Trump, but things were bad before Trump. And things were bad under Biden, and things were bad under Obama, and things were bad under Trump 1. But things have gotten a lot worse. ICE has inherently always been racist. And in a lot of ways, immigration enforcement has always been racist throughout American history. And immigration law has always been racist throughout American history. The whole reason that we have the kind of immigration laws we do are racist. Go, I'm serious, go study immigration law and tell me it's not racist. It is inherently racist. I get so tired of people saying things, oh, why are you always saying that this is inherently racist or the America is inherently racist? Well, it is. I'm not saying it. It's true. I'm just telling you what is a fact. America is inherently racist and always has been. And in some ways, we strive to be better, and in some ways, we have become better. But at its core, its history is still racist. And that core history still has ramifications today. And one of those ramifications is in how ICE is enforcing the law. When you have more brown people who are citizens being deported than you have white people who are not citizens being deported, you have a racist policy implementation. So there's been constitutional violations, Fourth Amendment, warrantless home entries, using administrative versus judicial warrants. An administrative warrant means that they don't need a judge to sign off. A lot of these administrative warrants, a lot of the warrants they're executing are administrative, which means they can administer their own warrants. There's no judicial oversight on them. The courts ruled ICE detainers based on flawed databases violate Fourth Amendment. Fifth Amendment, due process violations, no access to counsel. And I would like to point, like, people keep saying, like, there's this talking point in Magaland. I don't know if it's on Fox News. I don't know how it became so prevalent that undocumented workers don't have rights. And they don't have a right to due process. They do. They absolutely do. And due process, I want to clarify what due process means, because it doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. First of all, due process means something different for a civil offense and a criminal offense. If you have a criminal offense, your due process rights are much greater. Which is why crossing the border illegally is a civil offense, not a criminal offense. Because if it were a criminal offense, you would have to have a full trial with a defense attorney and everything for every single person that you deport. It's a civil offense. And so the civil offense, you don't have the same rights as you do. And you don't have the same right to presumption of innocence. I think it's like more than 50% chance of guilt. But you still have rights. And it used to be, if you were here for less than 30 days, you could be deported without a trial. That's what Obama did. That's why he had so many. This is not a law Obama passed. I think it was passed under Clinton, but by a majority Congress, and Clinton signed it. And it's been worse and worse. And now it's been up to 2 years. If you're here less than 2 years, you don't get it. But there's a Supreme Court history judging that even if you're an undocumented worker, you have a right to trial before you can be deported. You have rights if you're an undocumented worker or if you're an undocumented immigrant. You don't get rights just because you're a citizen. Otherwise, they can just say anybody's not a citizen and deport them to wherever they want. There's a reason due process exists. And when you're like, oh, but they're an illegal immigrant, okay, then prove it in court. That's why due process exists. I don't know how much more clear to say that. We have due process to prevent government abuse. And if you take away due process from anyone, you take away due process from everyone. Because all they have to do, if they take due process away from Group A and you're in Group B, you can't say, well, I'm not in Group A. I'm safe. No, you're not. All the government has to do is accuse you of being in Group A. Then you have no more rights. You can say, well, I can show you my documents. Well, ICE doesn't believe those. They say they're forged. You're back in Group A. And that has happened. That is not a theory. President in 2020. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't Joe Biden. I don't know why Republicans keep trying to pretend like 2020, everything bad that happened in 2020 was Joe Biden's fault. It wasn't. But I would say this correlates more with COVID than anything. Like, that's understandable. 2021, there were 8. In 2022, there were 7. In 2023, there were 8. In 2024, there were 8. So this is normal, like 7, 8. People are going to die in ICE custody just like people die while they're on SNAP benefits. But when it triples in 2025, and I think there's like another 18 or so where people were like basically already dead. They had waited to the point where they were unsavable, and then they shipped them off to the emergency room and they died on the way to the emergency room. So they didn't technically die in ICE custody. There's actually a lot more than 24 and 23. And we're 1 away from tying the record, and we're 2 away from breaking it. And we still got 2 months left. We've had 60,000, almost 60,000 people detained. Of those, 42,755 have no criminal record, or they were the ones that have a criminal record. Most of them are things like traffic violations. Oh, you got a speeding ticket. All right. Nobody's against arresting murderers. What we're saying is spending billions of dollars to go out and get people that committed a series of misdemeanors and deporting them is probably not the top priority. It guts the country's economy. You want to be concerned about the cost of living? You know what's going to make the cost of living go up? You want to know what's going to enhance the affordability crisis? Deporting all these undocumented workers. They're not making housing prices go up. If anything, they're helping housing prices because a significant number of the work done in new houses is done by undocumented workers. And when you ship them out, nobody's left to do that work. So the price of the homes goes up. They're not buying new houses. You know, even if they, you think 11 million people, they each have a house. Most of them, a lot of them like actually live in the same house, like 2 or 3 families will cohabitate. Number 2, those houses are usually rented. They're not bought. They might be partly responsible for inflation on rent, but that's not the primary driver. And I would like to say a lot of those houses aren't houses you want to rent anyway. I mean, it's like this Schrodinger's immigrant. Like they want to have it so that 1, the immigrants are all working, and 2, they're all living on the government dole. Number 2, they're taking away all the American jobs and all the American money. And B, they're all like poor and impoverished. So anyway. Hey, Resistance Kitty. So then these are the pie chart showing the constitutional violations There's 32 cases of Fifth Amendment violations, 45 cases of Fourth Amendment. That's an unreasonable search and seizure. The database errors, those are usually related to, oh, they're a gang member. And then because they have a tattoo of a butterfly or whatever. And then racial profiling. There's a lot of racial profiling going on. And, Brett Kavanaugh can say what is it Brett or which one? Is it? Brett Kavanaugh, yeah. So Brett Kavanaugh can say what he wants about, oh, well, they'll be let go. That hasn't been the case. Racial profiling is definitely an issue. And like I said, like up to 95% of detained immigrants have been Hispanic, even though it's only like 65 to 70% of illegal immigrants are Hispanic. So where are the white immigrants? Where are the white people that are here illegally? Where are the Russians that come over here and overstay their visa? The enforcement is racist. And it's even just like, well, you spoke Spanish and you're brown. Well, where's the law enforcement on people that speak Russian and are white? It's that all of the focus is on brown people who speak Spanish. And that's why brown people who speak Spanish, because they grew up in Spanish-speaking homes, but are citizens of the United States, are being arrested and detained. Ah, shucks, Resistance. I appreciate you. So this is just the sources for this so that I'm not making it up. All right. Oh, wait. Think yours. Oh, yeah. So let's go more into wrongful detention of U.S. citizens. Again, 1,480 released after proving citizenship between 2012 and 2018. Some of that overlaps with Trump's first term. But I'm trying to show, I'm not just calling out Trump. I'm calling out ICE. This is a historic problem that predates Trump. There were 674 citizens arrested between 2015 and 2020. Most of that time frame, Trump was president. 121 were detained and 70 were deported. 2020 alone, there's been 170 plus documented detentions. So you can see the rate. This is a 7-year period. Anyway. So database errors, ICE relies on error-ridden databases that frequently misidentify citizens. Courts found databases so unreliable they cannot support probable cause for detention. Oh, so I was wrong about that. That's pretty unreliable. Like the Supreme Court, the courts have said, look, no, this is so haphazard and scattershot. I imagine it's like, oh, you got somebody named Jose Garcia. Therefore, all Jose Garcias are here illegally. Dismissed documentations. This is the one that offends me to the uttermost. They pass a law saying that you have to register if you're an alien and you have to carry your papers on you. And then people carry their papers on them and they say, no, they're fake. And that's only like you only have to carry your papers on you if you're here illegally or if you're here as an immigrant. If you're a citizen, you don't have to register. You can't register. But you have to carry what, multiple forms of documentation on you? Let me ask you two questions. First question, is it okay for the government to detain you if you're an American citizen and you don't have your ID? You haven't done anything wrong other than not have your ID. Can the government detain you? Second question, two parts. First part, do you worry about that happening to you? That's part A. Number two, are you white? Because if you're white, you're not worried about it. I've never had a concern about it. If you're brown, you probably do, and you're probably hoping that ICE will believe it's real. When it's real, they have like literally told people who have shown what is called real IDs that are designed to be unfakeable, that they're fake. They just dismissed it out of hand. You can take the seal out of the gravy, but you can't take the gravy out of the seal. The gravy seals are racist, and they are predominantly what ICE agents are. You watch them run their little obstacle courses, and I say run very loosely. They waddle their little confidence courses. And these are the ones that you see getting assaulted by having, like people punch them in the fist with their face. They assault people and then they say that they were assaulted. This like laughable, 800% increase in assaults. That's charged assaults, not convicted assaults. Because they're not getting convictions of assault. Because they're the ones doing the assaulting. There's no legal review. ICE policy requires review within 48 hours if someone claims citizenship. Multiple cases show this policy is routinely violated. Citizens tackled, pepper sprayed, beaten, some held for days without contact with legal or family counsel, unable to prove citizenship. These are some of the legal cases they've lost. Court ruled ICE detainers based on evidence alone violate the Fourth Amendment. Ninth Circuit required neutral decision maker to review ICE detentions. Wouldn't that be great? Just having a neutral arbiter say, yeah, that's a valid real ID, you can go. When you have the people making the arrests also be the arbiter of whether the arrest was valid, you've got a system that is not very good. You have nearly 50 documented instances where charges were dismissed or never filed. And those are just the cases against citizens. And over 50 members have demanded investigations into citizens' detentions. This has not happened, and it should. Okay. Now let's talk about the conditions. People are always saying, oh, you can't compare ICE to Gestapo. And I agree. ICE is worse. At least Gestapo didn't wear masks. At least Gestapo accepted your documents if you showed them. ICE doesn't even go that far. So there's 67 documented cases of medical neglect, 89 documented cases of overcrowding, 54 documented cases where people weren't getting food or sanitation, 45 documented cases where people weren't allowed access to counsel, and there were 23 cases where they ignored authentic suicide risks. That's why they've had 23 people die. 3 of them by apparent suicide, 13 deaths at the Stewart Detention Center alone. Oh, well, that's since 2006. In Broadview, they're supposed to release people after a 12-hour limit, and people are being held for days and weeks. There's no beds. People sleep on cold floors. They'll have like people sleeping on like multiple people in one room. Like people have nowhere to go and they're sleeping right next to the only toilet in there. It's disgusting. These are people. And this is one of the problems I have with the whole dehumanizing rhetoric. And you have people that will say, oh, well, it's okay because they're illegal immigrants. They should have thought about that before they came over here illegally. Like, seriously, what is wrong with your soul? They're people. They're human beings. Many of them were evading like certain death. They should have thought about that before they came over here illegally. Like, what? Why should they have thought about that before they came over here illegally? What a snide little bitch thing to say. Nome, Florida, Crum, Florida. I think that's where Alligator Alcatraz was. Severe overcrowding documented. Detainees sleeping on floors. Cups of rice and a glass of water a day. Medical delays tied to deaths. Women held in men's facilities. They're all like, oh, well, trans women shouldn't be allowed to use the bathroom. But they're going to shove women in detention centers with men. Do those women need safe places? Or they're cattle? They're not real people. Like the dehumanizing of undocumented workers is just disgusting. It's Nazi level disgusting. If you're willing to use the fact that they're undocumented to dehumanize them, don't get triggered when I call you a Nazi. If you act like a Nazi and honk like a Nazi, you're a Nazi. That kind of racist, vile, disgusting language makes you a Nazi, not my calling you one. I am like, that just disgusts me to like no level. Like, I don't even see how you can live with yourself. So 76% of ICE raids target majority Latino neighborhoods. So we're going to go into where is their racial profiling. So in 2025, the Supreme Court cleared the way for ICE agents to use race and ethnic appearance as factors in deciding who to stop and detain. Technically, it's like, okay, as long as it's not the exclusive reasoning, you're allowed to use it. But every indication is that it is the exclusive reasoning. There's not targets in Russian areas. Do you think that there's only like Latino ghettos? You don't think that the Eastern Europeans have places where they live and work? You don't think that some of them might be undocumented? Where's the raids on those communities? Why is it that there is a disproportionate race target of Latinos if it's not just about getting brown people? And by the way, most of the rest are against Asians. 47% of Latinos worry they or someone close could be deported. And 77% of detainees in Western New York are raids from Latin America. ICE targets heavily Latino jobs in neighborhoods, construction sites, car washes, garment factories, day labor swap meets. Agents question workers based on appearance, not probable cause. To them, their appearance is probable cause. That's the problem with the Supreme Court's decision. And even, like I just would like to point out, these are not violent people. They're not like violent car washers. They're not like raping your car. The violence, they're not going after the violent ones. If they were going after violent people, I would be like, fine, go after them. Go after the cartels. Go after the drug gangs. The problem is, those are the only ones you're not going after. You're afraid of them because you're little cowardly gravy seals. You're going after moms dropping off their schools, and you're like ganging up on them with your tactical weapons and your bulletproof vests. And you're going after this mom just dropping off her 6-year-old from school, and you're terrorizing an entire school of children and traumatizing them so that you can feel like a big macho man. You might as well just play macho man while you're doing it, because it's so ironic on so many levels that you are anything but macho, you fat piece of bacon. Tip line abuse. Community tip lines where residents report seeing undocumented immigrants. So they have a tip line. Oh, I saw an undocumented person. How did you know they were undocumented? Were they speaking Spanish? Were they brown? It's amazing how many people can like find out if you're on food stamps or whether you're a legal citizen just by looking at you. ICE acknowledges some tips come from competitors seeking revenge, but it sees an opportunity. So you like even have people, you have a shop and this guy has a shop, and so you tip off the other guy for having undocumented workers, and then your shop gets all their business. That's like, again, Nazi Germany stuff. Multiple U.S. citizens detained during traffic stops after they've been being told they looked like someone ICE was looking for. What, brown? Valid IDs and dismissed as fake based on appearance? Well, you're a brown person and this is a real ID, therefore this must be a fake ID. Surveillance of Latino areas. 40% of naturalized Latino citizens believe border agents would identify them as Latino Mexican based on appearance. 60% report medium dark skin tone. So the darker you are, the more likely you are to be detained by ICE. How is this not racist? So you've got U.S. citizens and Latino communities now carrying passports everywhere. City council member, just let's call this what it is, real. Are you white? Do you carry your passport around with you so that you can't be deported? Honestly, answer that question. Why should a brown citizen have to be carrying around their passport if this is not about race? Like, honestly, think about it. Don't just sit there and get all up in your feelies about somebody saying racism exists, and honestly ask yourself, if you're a white person, do you carry around your passport because you don't want to be deported? If they went after illegals who were on EBT, they would definitely not be having any arrests. I think that comment was meant sarcastic. I think that they agree with me that nobody on SNAP benefits is illegal, because you have to be you have to be here legally to get SNAP benefits. Loss of trust in law enforcement. They've co-opted law enforcement to participate in these racist raids. So this actually has a long-term impact. The long-term impact is this: the police work together with ICE in illegally detaining citizens, and then those illegally detained citizens stay there. But how are they going to trust the police? And if they don't trust the police, how are they going to cooperate with the police? How are they going to go after like legitimate criminals without legitimate, honest citizens cooperating with them? Chris Missing says my argument is weak, which ironically is a very weak argument. So there's been multiple cases by the ACLU challenging racial profiling in Los Angeles, including detained for filming ICE raids. Yeah, people are being detained for filming the ICE raids. Like there's nothing illegal about that. That's part of the First Amendment. You're allowed free speech. You're allowed free press. There were people that declared that said that they had immunity from January 6th prosecution because of the same reasoning. They were just there filming. They weren't part of it. Okay, so now I just want to go into the actual instances. Some people, like maybe Mr. Your case is weak there, doesn't have enough patience. Maybe he's not still around. But the next thing I want to talk about is actual cases. These are actual instances of people who were illegally detained. Okay. So these are, first are the citizens. David Davino Watson, U.S. citizen. He was detained for 3 years in an Alabama detention center and was released after 3 years without an attorney. This is an older case. And it was like I think this happened under Bush, where he was released. But I thought this was interesting because they actually told them he actually told them he was a citizen. It was proven he was a citizen. After 3 years, they said, okay, you are a citizen. And they just let him out in the middle of Arkansas. He was actually originally arrested in New York, in Brooklyn. His parents were from Jamaica. His dad was naturalized before he turned 18, so he became naturalized after when his dad became naturalized. So he was born in Jamaica. He wasn't a born citizen, but he was a naturalized citizen. And that shouldn't make a difference. You're a citizen, you're a citizen. But then his dad was arrested for drug trafficking. And anyway, so his dad's citizenship got revoked because of that. And then there was some question about whether or not his citizenship was upheld. They kept him in prison the whole time, even though he had no offense himself. The only thing he did wrong was get arrested. George Reitz, this one was more recent. He was detained for 3 days. He was pepper sprayed. His window was broken. There was no family contact. He was a U.S. military veteran, a disabled military veteran at that. He was subjected to physical force, including pepper spray. They broke his window. He was denied contact with his family member. And he was finally released after 3 days once his citizenship was confirmed. He committed the high crime of filming ICE agents, illegal activities. Leonardo Garcia Venegas, he was detained twice. This is the guy that was actually detained, held illegally, even after he showed his documentation. Then they arrested him again just hours later. Like, how, like, when people are like, oh, you just have to show your documents. People show their documents, get arrested, held, and then get arrested again after they're finally released. Jose Hermosillo, he was detained for 10 days in Arizona, and the agent just refused to believe he had a citizenship claim. He was held for 10 days. He detained despite ability to prove citizenship. Released after verification process completed. No compensation provided for wrongful detention. So, how would you feel about being held in these draconian conditions for 10 days for not being a citizen when you are actually a citizen? These are not guilty people. These are not undocumented workers. These are American citizens. So don't tell me that it's about being illegal. It's about being brown. How many of these names are, Boris Karloff or something like that? Andre Velez, he was on his way to work, and when he was tackled by agents, charged with assault, and the charges were dismissed. Or she. This is the one, Andrea Velez. She's like 4'11" and $105. She's this tiny little woman, and she's just like walking to work. And then she just like, some ICE agent comes out of nowhere and tackles her, says that she tried to hit him. And then she spends the next 10 days in prison. She was charged with assaulting the federal agent. She doesn't even know what he's talking about. He was charged with putting a hand out as agent ran into her. Well, now all the charges were dismissed after review. The actual agent who assaulted this tiny little girl, nothing happened to him. It's not just racist, it's systemically racist. When you have people that are encouraged and permitted to do these racist things, and then after they're done and proven the agents aren't disciplined, it's not just problematic, it's systemic. Brian Gavita, U.S. citizen, was briefly detained. He was detained for investigation, released after citizenship confirmed. This one's like a lesser one. But why was he detained? Elzon, he was briefly detained in a traffic stop because he looked like a suspect. What does look like a suspect mean? Brown? Joe Garcia is the PhD student who was filming an ICE raid from his truck, and they just came over and they smashed his window, yanked him out of the truck, beat the crap out of him, and then held him for 24 hours, despite the fact that he had already confirmed he was a citizen. He did nothing. He didn't assault anybody. He didn't do anything wrong. You've got 3 people that died in custody. Brian Rayo Garzon, who committed suicide. This one, Maria Angie Blaze, she was sitting there screaming and calling for help for over half an hour, dying of a heart attack. Jesus Molina Vea. He was found unconscious with ligature around neck, death rolled apparent suicide. So they keep saying that they're, like, oh, they're monitored and all of this kind of stuff, but you have people that clearly aren't being monitored. I'm not saying these people were Epstein. I think that they were legitimate suicides, but I think that in a situation like this, where people are like potentially being shipped back to countries where they're going to be murdered, might be taking the easy way out. Like a lot of these asylum victims, whether you want to believe it or not, are asylum seekers, whether you want to believe it or not, are actually seeking asylum. Like they really were in danger where they were. The drug cartels in South America, like you can't on the one hand say that they're these violent, terrible organizations, and then on the other hand, like assume that everybody that wants to flee from them is part of them. It's incongruent. All right. So the next thing I wanted to dive into about all this is the whole, like they're wearing masks and, they're all armed up. And there's all these excuses made about how assaults are up. Well, assault charges are filed, people are charged with assault. The number of actual assaults is not insanely up. Like the number of assaults claims versus the number of assaults, not the same thing. Anyway, they're using this as the excuse to wear masks. So they're concerned that they're going to be doxxed, that people are going to find out who they are and come out to their house and, like assault them or attack them and their families. So I thought, okay, let's see if there's any validity to this. So I went through and I did a study. The number of people, ICE agents who have been doxxed online and had their homes invaded is 0. The number of people that had their families attacked is 0. The number that have been physically assaulted has been 0. And the total number of injuries sustained by ICE agents who were doxxed is 0. So let's go into the detailed case records here. There aren't any. 0, zilch, nada, none. Despite extensive searches of DHS press releases, DOJ criminal filings, court records, and investigative journalism, there is not a single documented case of an ICE agent or their family being physically attacked at their home after being identified through doxing. So that kind of makes me think there might be a bit of BS here. That they are not doing it because they're afraid of repercussions, physical attacks and stuff like that. They just don't want to be embarrassed. They want to be able to show up for Thanksgiving and not say, yeah, I threw this 6th grade teacher on the ground. I'm a real man. Pass the gravy. So justification for mass ICE agents wear masks to protect themselves and their families from doxing, which is total horse crap. The assault statistics are that there's 830 to 1,000% increase in assaults. But again, most of those assaults aren't real assaults. I've seen some of these assaults. Somebody is filming with a camera and they get slammed to the ground. A 4'11" Hispanic girl is walking to work and gets slammed to the ground. Then they get charged with assault. Most of these assaults, the only ones doing the assaulting is the ICE agent, and then the ICE agent is saying they were assaulted to cover up for the fact that they did the assaulting. So these are the closest things I could find to anything that's remotely connected to doxing. So 3 women once followed an ICE agent home and live streamed his address. Nothing happened to him. Nothing happened to his family. Nobody went out to his house. She was arrested for conspiracy and disclosing personal information when she should have been. I'm not justifying what she did. I'm saying what she did doesn't justify what ICE does. Gregory Carrico posted ICE attorney's address called for swatting. He was arrested for doxing. No physical attack occurred. And again, not saying what he did was legal. And this was an ICE attorney, not an ICE agent. He got the information from a card that the attorney gave him. He didn't like go and sleuth his way into discovering who the ICE attorney was. And what he did was legal and should be illegal. And he was arrested for doxing. He should be. But nothing happened to the attorney. Somebody made threatening phone calls to an ICE agent's spouse, which again, that's under investigation. It should be. I'm not okay with that. I'm saying that that does not warrant what ICE is doing by wearing masks. And then Houston resident displayed ICE agent effigies on gallows, which is in bad taste, but not even illegal. It's okay to have fake gallows up in the Capitol building, but it's not okay to have an ICE agent on gallows in front of your house. And again, I'm not saying I'm okay with that. I'm saying it's not illegal. It's in bad taste. So about the 830% increase in assaults, here's the reality check. Most of these assaults happened during confrontations, not at homes. They have nothing to do with doxing. They're people getting tackled by ICE agents during the middle of raids. People filming ICE, and what they're counting as assault. Like people filming ICE operations are counted as an assault. People asking for badge numbers are counted as an assault. Citizens trying to retrieve their phones after ICE takes them are charged with assault. Being tackled by ICE agents, then charged with assaulting them, is a very common pattern. Over 50 of these assault cases have already been dismissed. So this and then there's also like the 830%. Hang on, I'm trying to figure out what the baseline number is. So I can't get what. Hang on, let me ask another. Sorry, I should have figured this out. I think the number's like 17. Because when they say, it's gone up 830%, that's a very that can be a very easy to toy with number, because you're talking about percentages, and percentages can always be played with. So if it was like 5 and it's gone up by 830%, that means it's gone up to like from 5 to 40. So I'm asking Claude. Basic Google went and find it. But do you see what I mean? Like, and then when you factor in the number of ICE raids versus 2024, is there 8 times as many ICE raids? as in 2024? Is there an inherently anti-ice movement where people are assaulting ICE, or is it just ICE is more active and doing more raids and defining assault differently? Is the 830% actually kind of small? All right, so seems like it's hard to find the baseline number. I can't find the baseline number, but like in Colorado, there were 5. So the baseline number is small. I don't think that the 830% actually is a significant number when you factor in, one, that there are just more ICE raids, and number 2, that the things which are counted as assault is so dramatically different that I don't think that the 830% is a big number. I actually think it's a small number, because those two things work together. Because there's so much more attention on the ICE raids, because there are so many more ICE raids, more people are filming ICE raids. So more people are being charged with assault for filming ICE raids, even though they're not actually assaulting anybody. What are they gonna, like, they're assaulting people with like film? If you film somebody committing a crime, you're not committing a crime. So, putting it all together, ICE agents are disproportionately going after brown people, arresting brown people, arresting brown citizens, deporting brown citizens, and not going after white people, not going after white illegal immigrants, not deporting white immigrants, illegal white immigrants. They are going after some Asian people. There's literal documented evidence that the darker you are, the more likely you are to be attacked by ICE. They're using all of this, and then they're wearing these masks, and they're saying that it's so that they can sorry, phone's ringing. But they're saying it so that they can, not be doxxed. But clearly that's not the reason why. Because they're not getting doxxed. And so that they can't be embarrassed. All right. I'm going to have to get this call, so I'm going to end here, and I'll talk to you later.